Hopefully everybody had a chance to get some water, take a break for just a few minutes, but we're going to resume with our streak of amazing speakers. So I'm have the honor of introducing our next speaker, who is Dr. Dineo Khabele. She's a highly accomplished physician scientist and leader in the field of gynecologic oncology. She embodies inspirational leadership in medicine and science driven by her vision and mission to deliver inclusion, diversity, and excellence in clinical service, research, education, and community engagement. She not only leads a cutting-edge translational research, she also provides high-quality clinical care while advancing the next generation of clinicians and scientists from diverse backgrounds. Her ability to move research generated in her own laboratory to phase 1 and 2 clinical trial is not common and speaks to the scientific rigor and quality of her work. She's presented her work at national and international meetings and is a sought after speaker. So we're thankful that you're here with us today. And in recognition of her scientific achievements, she was inducted into the American Society of Clinical Investigation in 2019. Yes, you can clap for that. Her advocacy research and work focuses on reducing health disparities and promoting health equity in medicine and science. As one of the few Black women tenured professors and chairs in academic medicine, which another clap, I think should, yes. She's committed to mentorship and sponsorship of people who have been marginalized in medicine and science, particularly those with interests in women's health, women's cancers, and health equity. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Khabele to the podium.
Thank you, Dr. Bayani, and good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. There we go. There we go. I'm really delighted to be here, and I think that there's a running theme just listening to everybody speak today. And I think that there's nothing else that you take away from today's talk is that we can all lead from any chair. So these are my disclosures, and I just want to give a little bit of history about the Department of OBGYN at WashU School of Medicine. So, late 1800s all the way to 2020, the original smaller hospitals were at the turn of the century. And there were separate hospitals. There was Barnes Hospital, there was Jewish Hospital, and this maternity hospital in the 1920s. And maternity services moved to Barnes Women's Care Tower, and our administrative offices remained the maternity hospital, which still exists on campus. And then in 2018, our services moved to Parkview Tower. And our outpatient services moved to the Center for Outpatient Health. Why am I giving this history? Well, in this smaller print over here are the number of prior chairs of this department. So you can see that there haven't been that many department chairs. Also, what is really relevant is between Barnes Hospital and Jewish Hospital, what our departments meant to the communities in St. Louis and what people view of us. In Parkview Tower, our labor and delivery unit is state of the art. It is absolutely incredible. But if you talk to people in St. Louis, in the St. Louis region, where do people who are of professional class go to deliver their babies? Missouri Baptist or Mercy, right? So people on the Illinois side will drive past us. They'll cross the bridge and go over to Mobap or Mercy to deliver their babies. And our state-of-the-art outpatient care unit is here in the Center for Outpatient Health. So that's part of the history that we're grappling with. We also grapple with the fact that there are many people still alive today, Black women in particular, who had to deliver their babies in the basements of these hospitals, so segregated hospitals. And so how do we overcome those legacies? So that's sort of the historical background. I'm the first woman chair of the Department of OBGYN, the first Black chair in the School of Medicine. And I think that that is really telling historically that this occurred in 2020. So just something to put into perspective. So I started in June of 2020, and these were some of the headlines. So I started this job about 2 weeks after the murder of George Floyd. I started this job when there was a lot of political pushback and increasing restrictions on abortion care. I started this job when there were all kinds of rumblings about taking care of pregnant moms with addiction. And so there was a lot of turmoil. We actually came together as a department within a few weeks of my starting this position to create this statement about caring for patients, and we raised voices to break the silence that compounds the trauma of our community. So a public acknowledgement of some of the trauma that many of our patients experience. This is posted all over our department as it is across WashU Medicine, and we created an ideas office. It stands for a few different things in the Department of Medicine, but really believing that we can't have innovation if we don't include voices. We really can't make new discoveries without diversity of thought. We can't say that we're excellent if we're not paying attention to equity, and we're certainly not going to advance the fields of medicine and science without advocacy. So all of this, as the 9th chair of the Department of OBGYN, is occurring in the background. And so, you know, how do you lead in a VUCA environment? I call it VUCA, but this is apparently comes from the military. And it's a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environment. And I would say that this is the environment we're in right now, socially, culturally, politically, in our nation and internationally. This is the state of the world. And so how can we possibly lead with all of this chaos? And I think it's really important, and this is why I appreciate and wanted to speak today, is that you have to have a toolbox of skills to develop vision, understanding, clarity, and adaptability to be able to lead in these environments. So one of the strategies I use, and I really encourage people to think about leading by design and leading intentionally, is it's called a PAR statement. Has anybody heard of this PAR statement? So this is used in the business world quite a bit. And actually, if you're looking to apply for a leadership position, it really helps to have several PAR statements on kind of an executive summary of who you are. So PAR statement stands for problem, approach, and result. And it's almost, I mean, we're used to this kind of thing in medicine. You know, we have SOAP notes, we have, you know, an assessment and plan. So it's kind of in that realm. So as I briefly described, I'm a new chair with a new charge in a chaotic environment. And the charge, my job really was to come into an exceptional department that's already great and do what I can to make it even greater. And so for the first 6 months of my job, I had to think about who I had, where I was, and sort of how do I create a path forward. So I understood the problem. And my approach, first of all, was to have a growth mindset. And I think that that's so very important, especially if you're coming into a situation that's completely new to you. I had to go first by saying this, you know, it's chaos for everybody. We're all trying to figure this out. Oh, by the way, did I mention I started in the middle of one of our huge surges in the middle of the COVID pandemic, right? Chaos. So what do as a leader? You go first. You say, I've never seen this before, but we're going to figure it out. And then I think that the way I describe failure is first attempt in learning. Okay, it's okay to fail. This is our first attempt in learning. I use the word pilot a lot. We're going to pilot this approach, right? It's the first attempt in learning. Okay, if it doesn't work, we'll do something different. And then try to have fun. And so I spent a lot of time talking to people to seek understanding and clarity. And I'm going to really focus on this word clarity because I think to me that's so much more important than the word transparency. I think we use the word transparency a lot. It's like we need to be more transparent. Let me tell you, the amount of data, the amount of information that we share with each other in our department, enormous amounts of information. If you think about the information that we have access to directly, you can Google anything. There's so many things that are transparent, but are they clear? I mean, are they truly clear? Transparent in that you have access to it and you can download all this information. I think about my chart. I mean, it's direct to patient now. So I have a patient who gets her pathology results before I do. That's being very, very transparent. It is clear as mud, right? You can't, so I think clarity to me is far more important than transparency. So I conducted a listening tour. I wanted to understand the culture. That's what I recommend to people when you land in a new place. I had to really kind of sit on my hands and kind of cross my fingers because I'm one of those people who's like, well, I did it this way in this place and I want to try this here. I had to tone that down and really listen. What is the culture here? We conducted a listening tour. And we actually, I hired an executive coach because that I understood that, executive leadership development is really important and it's ongoing. And then I identified my leadership team and I recognized pretty early on that the executive director of the department at the time had been around for 24 years, had done a great job, and it was just not going to work. As I told you, it was a chaotic time from June, July. By August, I went to the dean and I said, sorry, I just can't. I've got to make a change. And identified somebody within the department who really happened to be my go-to person the minute I started. And there's a story behind that. I won't take time, but she has now become the executive director. We did a pilot. I asked her to be interim from August through December. And by January, I asked her to take on the permanent role. And she's really my right-hand person in the department. And then I began to develop a vision for the department based on who the department told me they were, and performed a SWOT analysis. Who knows what a SWOT analysis is? Yeah. Okay, so it stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And that's how I started to develop a strategic plan. So we launched our strategic planning process. And along the way, I got additional help. So we've hired an outside consultant, CMA, to facilitate change. We call it a culture calibration. We launched a department-wide survey for everybody in the department, including staff, in 2020, repeated it in 2022, and we're in the middle of our campaign for the 2024 departmental survey. And we've said, part of the campaign, your voice matters. We're trying for 100% participation in the survey. We had about 70% participation in previous years, and that helps guide us and informs our direction. So has anybody seen this, The Golden Circle? Why? Simon Sinek. So great YouTube video. Hopefully you all will get the slides, but I would recommend just watching it. It's really quick. You can watch it on fast, which is how I watch my YouTube videos, 1.5 to 2, sure. So the Golden Circle is why, and he talks about very few people or companies can clearly articulate why they do what they do. And so part of my listening tour is I asked every single person, I interviewed every single faculty member, all of the senior administrative leaders, why do you do what you do? And what's really interesting is how many people have a really hard time answering that question. That was fascinating to me. People have a hard time answering that question. Why do you do what you do? And especially in fields like medicine, where there's like a path that's laid out for you. Well, you're a pre-med. Well, then you're going to go do your medical school, and then you do your residency, and of course you're going to do a fellowship. If you're in science, you do graduate school where you're going to do 1 or 2 postdocs and then you're faculty, right? And so there are these paths that are laid out, but each step of the way, do we know why we're doing this? And so purpose is really, really key when you're in a chaotic environment. When I have a very stressful day, which it's more days than not, in this position, right? I have to ground and center myself to remind myself why I chose this. And I was just talking to Renee Shellhouse, like, I chose to do this. I signed up for this job. No, so why is really, really, really important. And then what we're working on right now is people and processes. And then ultimately, it's your program and your product. It's very interesting. Most people will answer this question saying what they do, right? In social circumstances, people introduce themselves as what they do. And that's sometimes pretty far removed from actually who they are, right? And so aligning these things, I think, is really helpful. So, but, it's really interesting when I did ask people, why do we do what we do? I mean, this is why we do what we do. This is why we're at WashU. This is why we're in academic medicine. I love WashU. There are people who are moved to tears because they've been here. They're lifers. They've been here. This is their culture. They love this place. They want to give back. I'm an advocate. I care about our trainees. I want to train the next generation. I want to improve patient care. I'm interested in disruptive technologies. Okay. Well, this is the place to do it. I want to make a difference. Patient care, discovery. So this is all embedded in what, kind of a snapshot of the qualitative data. We also had independent focus groups and this climate survey that I talked about. And all of this put together, we then revised our mission statement, which is really our why. So this is our vision. I'm not going to read it. This is our mission. These are our values. This is the ideas. Well, we call it ideas, but it's ideas squared. And then at the center is care. We care with competence. You have to know what you're talking about. If you're at WashU, you have to be highly competent to be here. We want to show compassion to patients, trainees, each other. We're very curious because that's discovery, new technologies, et cetera. So we synthesized all of these things into our vision, mission statement. And then how the department is organized is around this care model. I call it the care model. So when my division chiefs report back to me, or vice chairs, it's in this model: clinical service, administrative support and oversight, research and education. And that's at the center of what we do. And really patient care is at the center, but all of these things are connected. So these are some of the people in the department. From our alumni society that we started, endowed professorship, honoring Magdalena Nelson, who's our director of research, who won a service award through the university, graduation, match day, our departmental party. There was at the Cardinal Stadium. So the people are how we get this stuff done. This is how we get our work done. And understanding who we are as people is really, really critical, really key. And we're doing a lot of work at the departmental leadership level for us to understand this on a much deeper level, because the work we do is so, so hard. So I mentioned going first with the growth mindset. So this was our OBGYN party. This is Tina Caruso, my right-hand person, executive director of the department. And I put this here because, girl boss, real deal, kind of joking around. But what's really funny, I liked, I think you had the, earlier we saw from Dominic Costco, the different personalities and how we communicate. This is just another tool called the DISC tool. And you could easily guess where I fit on this spectrum. I mean, it's very easy to put me. I'm like over here. I'm big D. I'm like red D. Like that is dominant on most of my personality assessments, right? I have a little bit of I in there, but mostly I want it done. I want the results. I'm very like end result driven, right? And so what was really important is that am balanced out with Tina, who is mostly C. So and on this side is task oriented, right? So both of us are results oriented, task oriented. Well, yeah, you want the person who's in charge of your business office to be results driven, right? Like that is really, really important. So I'm more strategic. She's more operational. We balance each other out. She's very reserved and reflective, but do not confuse her kindness for weakness, right? But she also has some green and stabilizing. Let's do it together. And I like to have some fun doing what I do, but this is the balance. So then we look at the rest of the team is where do people fit into this? And so I really think it's important to think about where you fit or sit in these kinds of structures and understand. So I have to understand my boss, like where my boss fits in here, my colleagues, colleagues on the executive faculty and colleagues in my department, and also the people in my lab, et cetera. So I think that that's very helpful. And, I do have an executive coach who's helping me tone down the D a little bit, kind of, take it down a notch and modulate it a bit. And then, but also, helping me not be inauthentic, right? So I'm more declarative now. Now I'll say, I'm a big D. This is how I do things. It is not because I'm trying to be mean or cruel or anything, but this is how I roll. And if that's too much for you and you don't like, if I'm mentoring you and you can't get with me, well, then talk to me about it and we'll get you somebody who's more nurturing, who will be a little nicer, And actually, I'm not a mean person. I feel like I really am kind, but I'm not the person bringing in the cookies, I'd rather throw a party, and cocktails. So we developed our departmental strategies. And again, you see, this is the care model. And so now I'm trying to cascade this out in each of the divisions. So they take pieces of this and now they'll have metrics that kind of fold into the strategy. So this is just to show you examples. So like I said, I'm more strategic and aspirational. And then there's the culture of what actually happens. And I did like that picture earlier of the operational model, your org chart, and then what actually happens. And then many of you have seen this image of the iceberg, which is, there's the iceberg ahead, but how do you navigate an iceberg? Only a small portion is above water and the majority of the iceberg is below water. So you need the people who can help you navigate the majority of the iceberg, which is below water, or you're going to run into it without knowing. And so how we care and how we get where we need to go is part of the care model is our strategy. And our culture is the driving path. It's how we show we care. And so these are things that I repeat in a variety of ways. And still, I'm about 3.5 years into being a chair. And I repeat this over and over again, and I think we're making headway. I think people are starting to pick up the language, because I think this is really kind of an important framework of how we get the best results for everybody. So it's a framework. These are some of our stats. So now it's the what for the Department of OBGYN. And all I want you all to focus on is that we have 10 divisions, 6 fellowships, about 58 faculty, 22 fellows, 36 residents. We're hitting really wonderful metrics with funding and all this stuff. And I would say this is fiscal year 23. We just found out we're up to number 7 in NIH funding. So yay. So lots of good stuff. And one of the things that's part of this narrative, and it's a really important part of the story, is, again, we came in, I started in a very volatile time. In 2022, the Dobbs decision came down. We had all these concerns about being able to recruit people, not just for training, but for faculty. And so it's really important that, since fiscal year 20, now to fiscal year 24, how we've increased, this is where I started, how we've increased our total headcount. We've increased our clinical FTE, which is really important. And, you know, and these are the percentages, but from 2020 to 2023, I hired 22 faculty. We've now signed our 30th faculty going into this next fiscal year. So part of the story is we've been able to inspire people to come and join us in spite of the VOCA environment, in spite of the challenges that we have. And what I present to people, and if they buy it, they join us, is that the challenge that we have here in St. Louis, Missouri, in the middle of the country with all of these issues, is an opportunity to make a difference. And so, you know, that's at the center of what we're trying to do in our department. So these are some of the really cool things we do. We have comprehensive care from ICSI, which is intracytoplasmic sperm injection in our IVF fertility unit. We have fetal care, fetal therapy, where we're performing surgeries on in utero. And this is to repair fetal myelomeningocele with our pediatric surgeons and neurosurgeons. And now we've been able to do this laparoscopically. And that allows some of the women to actually have vaginal deliveries and not a C-section. We're doing a lot to prevent cancer with our risk-reducing procedures and surgeries. And so we just have a range of fabulous offerings in our communities that I don't know that we've always highlighted. From an administrative standpoint, I think we've put a lot of investment into processes and procedures and policies because we want to retain our staff and our faculty. And we had a high turnover rate in fiscal year 2021, and we've reduced it to 6%. We've done a lot to invest in infrastructure. We have exit interviews, and now we're launching stay interviews. Does anybody know what a stay interview is? Yeah, so stay interviews are really important. Like, you don't want to wait till a person quits. You want to find out why they like what they do. Why are they here? And again, it goes back to that golden circle and why do you do what you do and how can we help you do it better? So we're focusing on appropriate staffing levels, updating our handbook and focusing on culture. We've hired Darius Whitaker, who's a program manager for our Ideas office. Really excited about some of the work that he's doing. This week is launching Black Maternal Health Week, which is a national kind of series of events. And so if anybody's in town this weekend, we have a baby shower that's happening on the Commons on Saturday, and then we have a series of speakers this week into next week with our BJH partners. So we created the Ideas Office. We have a resident-run DIA curriculum, and they're leading some of these events that are happening this week. We have a community advisory board that serves as scientific reviews for our internal pilot funding and some of our clinical trials. Most of our departments completed our diversity anti-racism training, and we've partnered with the Center for the Study of Race, Ethnicity, and Equity that's on the Danforth campus, and have had a couple of OB/GYN, obstetrics, racism, joint grand rounds. So research has been really fabulous. Dr. Sarah England is our vice chair for research. She was just elected to National Academy of Medicine. We are doing incredible things, including recruiting top-notch PhDs to join our department. And we're starting a master's program in reproductive sciences. So that's going to be super exciting. We just got a SPORE grant run by Dr. Dave Much. It's the Route 66 SPORE, as you can see here. And this is a specialized program of research excellence in endometrial cancer, which is the fastest growing cancer in incidence in the United States and 3 to 4 times more likely to be the cause of death for Black women who have endometrial cancer. Tammy Son is now an associate dean in education. She's our vice chair for education, and she is, talk about an expert educator. I don't know. I mean, I keep trying to get her to write about how she does what she does, but she's won every single education award you can imagine, like twice over. And she's just an incredible educator. We hired Dr. McKebba Williams, who's our vice chair for professional development and wellness. And what I I'm really interested in and why I wanted to speak today as well is because I think there needs to be more emphasis on faculty development and providing people with tools and how to deal with a lot of the chaos that we're in. Dr. Shelby Dickinson is our residency program director, and I just want you to look at our ACGME survey that we have been able to improve by double digits some of the issues we were having with our residents as far as training. And part of this is the attention to the faculty. If your faculty aren't right, your trainees aren't going to be right, right? If your faculty are stressed and are behaving badly, the collateral damage is your trainees and your patients, I would argue. And so this is just a huge kudos to the entire team that's being led by Dr. Dickinson. And I just want you to see that 8 students went into OBGYN post-ops. They all matched, 3 matched at WashU, and all of our fellowships filled. So incredible team. We have a lot of community engagement and outreach. This was Black Maternal Health Week last year. Again, we're doing it again this year. We've had multiple community health fairs, and we support the doulas program with Women and Infant Strategic Plan so that patients have a patient navigator with them when they come to our hospital, especially those from marginalized communities. So I have a few slides left that really come back to why I do what I do. And I have a personal mission statement. And I think it's important to develop your own personal mission statement, whatever stage of career you're in, because this will remind you why you do what you do. I have to remember when I'm particularly stressed what's important to me as far as values. And these are some of my values. Autonomy is important to me. So, if you're looking at a leadership position and there's not a lot of autonomy and autonomy is important to you, maybe that's not a good fit. I strive to be an inspirational leader. That's my vision. I'm just going to take a moment to just say, it's a challenge as a Black woman in medicine and in science. These are the statistics. I'm not going to repeat them, but really 0.1% of all Black scientists are Black, funded by the NIH, 0.1%. Okay, that's ridiculous. So these were the numbers in 2021. 160. So I'm one of 166 who received NIH funding. These are the numbers in OBGYN. So although, almost 90% of our residents are women, look at the faculty and look at the chairs. And then this is what's really worrying me. There's about a 16% decline in Black OBGYN residents, and there's a high rate of Black residents being dismissed before they graduate. So this is an issue. I always have a professional journey that I do sort of a reverse history. This is another good kind of exercise I learned from the AANC early career leadership, and you can do a reverse history. You start from where you are and move backwards. Should put 2024 there, but really this tells you how far you've come, right? And this kind of focuses you and reminds you again, these are internal kind of tools that you can use to remind yourself who you are. I added the role administrator when I got here, but these are my roles. This is my focus. This is my motivation, right? This is my motivation. And then what's helped is role models, sponsors, supporters, mentors, coaches. Tour mentors are also kind of motivating too, right? Right? I mean, you've had that person. I always think of Mr. Keegan. Thank you, Mr. Keegan, who told me when I was, so part of my schooling was in Southern Africa, was the O-level system. And he wrote this whole treatise on how I had no aptitude for science. So thank you, Mr. Keegan. So, and then the people that kind of worry me a bit are the silent bystanders. I just get concerned about those folks. So this is where I started in my reverse history. I arrived in New York City in 1985. I was the 3rd class of women at Columbia University. It was height of the HIV/AIDS crisis, height of the crack epidemic. This was really hard when I was in medical school, because by the time I got to medical school, they were separating babies from their moms. And so there were whole wards of babies. They were just crying by themselves, and people were told not to touch the babies. They didn't like to be touched. These were crack babies. I mean, ridiculous stuff. So fast forward 20 years and we know that we probably shouldn't have done that, right? You try to keep the babies with their moms and try to get moms into treatment. So I'm happy that we have a care clinic here where we really are supporting moms who have substance use issues to keep their babies. And this is kind of launched me with my community work. The National Black Women's Health Project is now called the National Black Women's Health Initiative. We're still dealing with these unacceptable rates. Missouri's report card for preterm birth and for maternal health is D-. So we have lots of work to do. There's always a personal journey, and I layer this on top. I don't have time to talk about it, but what are the things that make you who you are? And just the bottom line for me is finding a way to make a way out of no way. This is making a way out of no way is really part of Black American culture. It's, you beat the odds over and over and over again. You come from a history of people. This is Rock Springs Church. It's outside of Waco, Texas. This is a land of my grandmother's family, the Sadler family, who got this land after Juneteenth, after, finally they told Texans that, you were free, right? And so this is the colony where they started a church, and education was really, really important. My father's South African. He, really was very important for the anti-apartheid movement. So these are the things that are part of what allow me to do hard things. So I have 2 more slides and I'll be done. This is a great YouTube video, and we just finished March Madness. Woohoo! Kara Lawson is the Duke women's basketball coach, and she has this great series on YouTube. Again, you can watch it in 1.5 to 2, but she has this great thing on how to handle hard better. And I recommend that. She basically says it doesn't get easier. You think you're going to graduate and it's going to get easier. You're going to do this, it's going to get easier. Guess what, folks? It doesn't get easier. So we have to handle hard better. And so how do I put my oxygen mask on first? You heard about that earlier. How do I show up? Do I understand the assignment? This is so very important. Situational awareness. We're at WashU. This is ranked number 2 in NIH funding in the country. We're at top medical school, academic medical center. Rigor is part of the culture here. Do I understand where I landed, right? It's really important to understand the assignment. You don't do something like kind of minimally, the minimum requirement is not this place, okay? It may be another place, but it's not this place. And how do I build trustworthy relationships? And most importantly, why I took this job, how do I develop others? So here are my guiding principles. I'll just leave this here. I think this one, show them who you are, is partly for you, but I also really liked what was said earlier about what people do versus what they say. And I think when people show you who they really are at their core, you should believe them. And that's just paraphrasing something from Maya Angelou. So this is my other favorite author, Toni Morrison. If there's a book that you want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, then you must write it from any chair. Thank you. Did I go over? Yeah.
I just want to say thanks for all that you've done, but I've been here for a while, for all the achievements you give, for the inspiration you give people. So, no, thank you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
You get another accolade at ASCI.
So no, I just got inducted into AAP, which is the next, yes, the next thing. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And this QR code takes you to our website, which has got some amazing things on there. And then I'm still on X. It's really sad, but it's just quicker. I don't know how to do the Instagram thing, but if you want to follow me, there's so. Oh yeah, you have a question? Yes. Oh my gosh, how can you have a favorite Toni? Okay, so which is my favorite Toni Morrison? Okay, it's between for different reasons. Beloved is pretty much probably my favorite Toni Morrison book, but Bluest Eye really struck me. It's a young black girl who it's like this identity crisis, and she wants to be white at some point, portions of the book, just because of the tensions in society and how she kind of deals with that. So those are my favorite. Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah.
So that was a fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, I heard your talk as well as previous years on various topics.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated you saying this is my thought. I still want to create my team.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Others. So it's like left-hand player, so to speak. Larger, in your case, in the faculty, larger groups, who may not necessarily know yet.
Yeah.
What their if you want to connect and not offend. It's not.
I mean, I think that that's a risk you take. You know, I've given this talk in a variety of different situations, and I was thinking about how I wanted to present it today, but I've given this talk at a leadership meeting, and I got the reviews back, or similar version of this talk. And most of the reviews were favorable, but there were some people who were offended just by my presence. They just couldn't believe I was a chair of a department. They thought it was the most ridiculous thing ever. So you're not going to please everybody, okay? You're not going to connect with everybody. And the way that I sort of deal with that is I am very declarative of who I am up front. And I try to lead with the best of intentions. But it's not for everybody. And that's okay. That's all right. And I try to lay that out. And that's why that situational awareness is really important too. I do work on try to modulate my voice and kind of tone down a little bit depending on the circumstance, not to erase who I am, but I am aware that sometimes I can come across in a certain way that shuts people down or shuts people off, and that's not my intention. On the other hand, I think that there's a lot of gendered stuff that happens around this where some days I don't care. Like you think that I'm too intimidating. This is, I'm sorry. This is, well, not, but sorry, not sorry. So. Yeah, thank you.
Made some wonderful changes, but coming in at a time of chaos and making change must have been hard. I just wondered if you have any advice or things that you felt like where you worked well to get people along with the changes that are so important that needed to be made probably a long time ago, but I mean,
we're still in it. We're still in change management right now. And there's splits, right? There are people who are like, you're ruining Wash U, you're watering down our brand. And then there's some people who are like, we should have done this yesterday. And then there's some people who are kind of like, I don't know what's happening, right? So there's a mix of that's happening. What I am getting coached on, and from the very beginning, so there are two things I'm being coached on: modulating and just, kind of situational awareness and modulating, being strategic about when I modulate. The second piece is the rate and pace of change. I am results driven. I want to check those boxes. I want to say, I did this, I did this, I did this, and, my current coach is like, that's not this job. That's not, you can't come in and do that. Not at a Wash U. You have to slow down. You have to kind of pace yourself. And so that is actually my biggest challenge, because I feel like change is too slow. And so people are like, you did all this stuff. I'm like, no, I got a long list of things I want to do. So that's, it's a great question. We're in the middle of it. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. Yes.
Thank you. I really like the distinction.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, from your experience, what has been the most effective
What for me, and I really, you have to have a group of people who can carry that voice or cascade out. You can't be the only person talking about culture, because as a matter of fact, what happens, so you're talking about culture here, and that's the iceberg that you see, but really the culture is underwater. And if you don't have people who understand that piece of it and who can then help navigate through that, it doesn't matter. So what I struggle with is, this is where I want us to be, strategically, I have this plan, and how we're going to get there. Well, if there are people undermining every step of the way, you're not going to get there. So trying to convince other leaders, doing a lot of faculty development. We have a whole professional development series curriculum that goes throughout the year, that's in addition to our grand rounds, where we're trying to kind of move these ideas forward so they become part of our framework, and it gives people something to refer to. We put up the vision, mission, and values at a lot of meetings, and people are like, you showed this already. I'm like, yes, and we're going to show it again, because it's just not a one-time thing. So thank you. Oh, sorry. Sorry.
I do have.
Yeah.
So, I was just reading a business article about culture from the bit.
Yeah.
Which is, what do you see are the differences, culture, like, faculty level, culture from the faculty and staff? I think it's two different things.
Well, it has to happen simultaneously. So what Tina's done is she has an organizational person who works with her management team. And so how do you have a difficult conversation? How do you give feedback? So that same kind of curriculum is happening there as it's happening on the faculty side. And the way you do it may be slightly different. And then how we treat each other as faculty and staff. That is really, really huge, because if we're not respectful of staff, or staff is not respectful of other staff, or not respectful of patients, that's when we run into a lot of problems, because I may want all these things as the chair of the department, but if it's not happening day to day, it means nothing. They pick up on it. Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Well, thank you, everybody.